At 62, most people are slowing down, retiring, fading quietly into the background. But Johnny Depp, he's doing what no one thought possible, and fans are absolutely stunned. Let me ask you something, Em. Have you ever been written off, told your best days were behind you? If so, you're not alone. Johnny's been there too, mocked by the media, buried under scandal, and left out of Hollywood's biggest blockbusters. It truly seemed like his career was over. And yet here we are, in 2025, watching him flip the script completely on his terms. In this video, we're diving into the unbelievable move Johnny just made. A move no one, not even his most loyal fans, saw coming. So, let's rewind for a second. Johnny Depp was once the king of quirky roles and box office gold. Think Pirates of the Caribbean, Edward Scissorhands, Sweeney Todd. He was unstoppable. He wasn't just an actor. He was an experience. Directors loved his unpredictable choices. Audiences loved the vulnerability he brought to even the strangest characters. There was something magnetic about him, something that made even the weirdest roles completely unforgettable. Then came the lawsuits, the public fallout, the lost roles. The media circus, the headlines that went from praising him as a Hollywood icon to labeling him controversial, damaged, even dangerous. Studios dropped him. Awards shows stopped inviting him. Friends vanished. Headlines painted him in the worst possible light. And suddenly, it seemed like all the years he'd spent building a career of integrity, artistry, and daring choices were crumbling before our eyes. Instead of chasing roles or begging for forgiveness, Johnny disappeared. Quietly, no press tours, no PR stunts, just gone. But that silence wasn't empty. It was intentional. He started painting, touring with Jeff Beck, rebuilding not for fame, but for peace. And that distinction is important because most people in his position would have tried to stay in the spotlight. Most would have made grand apologies, fought tooth and nail to remain relevant. But not Johnny. He chose solitude over spectacle. That takes guts. Behind the scenes, he poured his pain into his art, and not just metaphorically, he literally painted. He created vibrant, deeply personal portraits of people who meant something to him. Bob Dylan, Heath Ledger, Elizabeth Taylor. The style was bold, unapologetic, colorful, much like the man himself. And when he released them to the public, something extraordinary happened. They sold out within hours. Art critics praised his raw talent. Collectors lined up. For a man the world had nearly written off, it was a quiet but powerful statement. He still had something to say, just not in the way people expected. He also threw himself into music, touring with Jeff Beck, sharing stages in Europe, and returning to something that had been part of his soul long before Hollywood ever came calling. And in the process, he rediscovered a part of himself that had been buried beneath years of contracts, cameras, and chaos. Music wasn't a career move. It was a lifeline. It was joy. It was healing. And now, at 62 years old, Johnny Depp just announced he's stepping behind the camera to direct his first feature film in more than 2 decades. That's right, he's directing again. The movie? A biopic on Amedeo Modigliani, the iconic Italian Jewish artist who, just like Johnny, was misunderstood and underestimated in his time. Modigliani was a rebel, a creative force often dismissed by critics while he was alive, only to be hailed as a genius after his death. Sound familiar? It's a story Depp connects with on a deeply personal level. He once said in an interview, "I see Modigliani as a man who pushed boundaries, who never fit the mold society built for him. That's something I understand all too well." The decision to tell this story isn't random, it's reflective. It's an artistic parallel to his own life. And more than that, it's a reclamation of narrative. After years of having others speak for him, lawyers, media outlets, tabloids, he's now speaking for himself, and through the lens of a camera, no less. Here's the kicker, he's not doing it alone. Al Pacino is backing the project. Yes. Yeah, that Al Pacino, the legend himself. That kind of creative partnership doesn't just happen, it's earned, quietly, over time. Pacino is not someone who throws his name around lightly. His involvement signals trust, belief. It tells the world, this isn't a vanity project. This is real, and it matters. Remember the last time Johnny directed a movie? It was The Brave, way back in 1997. It starred him and the late, great Marlon Brando. The film didn't make a massive splash commercially, but it was raw, intimate, and fiercely personal. And since then, no one really expected him to go behind the camera again. Most people assumed that phase of his career was over. But Johnny clearly had other plans. While the world was gossiping about trials and exes, he was plotting a new chapter. People underestimate just how emotionally taxing it is to make a film. Directing isn't just calling the shots. It's an all-consuming endeavor that demands vision, stamina, and confidence. For Johnny to step back into that role, at this point in his life, says more than words ever could. It says he's ready. Not just to work again, but to create, from the ground up, something that's his and his alone. Directing is more than being the person behind the camera. It means being the engine, the guide, the caretaker, and the soul of an entire production. It's a role that drains you mentally, physically, and spiritually, and if you're not prepared, it will devour you. A director is responsible for every frame of the film, from pre-production to post-production, and every step in between. From the moment a project begins to form, the director becomes its guardian, ensuring the integrity of the story, the tone, the casting, the performance, the visual texture, and ultimately, the message. Johnny Depp understands that intimately. For someone who spent decades as an actor under the direction of visionary filmmakers, Tim Burton, Gore Verbinski, Jim Jarmusch, and Terry Gilliam, to name a few, he's soaked up knowledge from some of the most inventive minds in cinema. But it's one thing to observe and another to take the reins yourself. Doing so at the age of 62 after surviving some of the most publicly humiliating years of his life signals something deeper than a career move. It's a personal resurrection, a declaration, a creative defiance against the forces that tried to bury him. What most people forget is that Johnny has directed before. His 1997 film The Brave, in which he also starred opposite Marlon Brando, was a dark, deeply personal piece. It didn't receive glowing reviews from mainstream critics at the time, but those who watched closely saw it for what it was, a man exploring the desperation of human existence through an uncompromising lens. It wasn't built for box office success. It was built for truth. That same spirit now guides him as he takes on the story of Amedeo Modigliani. Choosing Modigliani isn't coincidental. The artist's life mirrors many aspects of Depp's. Both were marginalized at pivotal points in their careers. Both were misunderstood, criticized, and largely unappreciated in the height of their creative lives. And both suffered personal demons that colored the work they created. In many ways, telling Modigliani's story is a form of catharsis for Johnny. It's a way to speak his truth through someone else's, a kind of emotional proxy. By immersing himself in the life of Modigliani, he's channeling his own grief, his own trials, and his own rebirth into something meaningful and lasting. What makes this project even more monumental is the timing. Most men at 62 are retreating into comfort. They've established themselves, they're seeking rest, not reinvention. But Johnny, battered though he may be from years of public scrutiny, isn't looking for peace and quiet. He's looking for authenticity. That's what directing offers him. It strips away the fluff, the headlines, the gossip. It places him squarely in the seat of creation, where the only thing that matters is the work. That kind of focus is rare, and when it returns after a long silence, it arrives with the weight of experience and the clarity of age. And it's not just about ambition. This isn't about climbing back to the top of some imaginary ladder of fame. Johnny Depp doesn't need to prove his worth anymore. Not to the industry, not to the critics, and certainly not to the public. What he's doing now comes from a place of pure artistic need. It's about legacy. It's about using the tools he's sharpened for decades to carve out something meaningful. When a director pours their entire soul into a film, you feel it. In every scene, every pause, every glance exchanged between characters. That's what this project promises to be. Not just a film, but a piece of him. He's also doing this with the burden, or the blessing, of lived experience. He's been through the full arc of a life shaped by fame. He's known what it's like to be adored and what it's like to be vilified. That perspective informs every decision he'll make as a director. It changes how he treats his actors, how he guides performances, and how he tells the story. He's no longer interested in spectacle for spectacle's sake. He wants resonance, meaning, moments that speak to the pain of being human, the complexity of redemption, and the power of art to outlive its maker. Behind the camera, he'll wield that emotional insight like a scalpel. He'll understand when to pull a performance back, when to push it, when to let silence speak volumes. Because he's lived through real silence, the kind where the phone stops ringing, the jobs disappear, and the world turns its back. That knowledge can't be taught, it can only be earned, and it's what will make this film feel so profoundly intimate. He's not guessing what pain looks like, he's lived it, and now he's ready to translate it into something timeless. What people don't always see is how much responsibility comes with directing. Every mistake, every delay, every casting choice, and every creative risk, it all lands on the director's shoulders. When things go wrong, there's nowhere to hide. For Johnny to take that on now, after years of enduring intense public pressure and personal turmoil, means he believes in this story with every fiber of his being. That kind of courage doesn't come from ego, it comes from conviction. From a place of deep personal understanding that the story is worth telling, and he is the only one who can tell it the way it deserves to be told. There's something hauntingly beautiful about that. A man who has been silenced, mocked, and ostracized, choosing to speak not with anger, but with art, choosing not to fight for relevance, but to create from sincerity. That is what makes this endeavor so different, so poignant. It's not just about Johnny Depp the actor, or even Johnny Depp the director. It's about Johnny Depp the human being, battered but not broken, reshaping the narrative not through interviews or lawsuits, but through his craft. And he's not doing this alone. Al Pacino's involvement isn't just a casting note, it's a symbol. Pacino is one of the most respected actors in the world, and for him to publicly stand beside Depp to collaborate with him on a project this intimate sends a powerful message. It's not just about faith in the film, it's about belief in the man behind it. And when someone like Pacino believes in you, especially after the kind of storms Depp has weathered, you know you're walking the right path. There's something deeply moving about a comeback that isn't loud, that isn't flashy, one that unfolds through the quiet dedication of a man returning to what he loves, not because he needs applause, but because he needs to make something beautiful. At its core, that's what directing is, an act of love, of obsession, of devotion to a story that demands to be told. Johnny Depp has found that story again, and this time, he's telling it with everything he's got. The deeper message here? Reinvention isn't about age, it's about owning your story. Johnny stopped chasing approval and started creating his own legacy. He learned the hard way that the court of public opinion can turn on a dime, but real power lies in persistence, in creation, in refusing to be defined by someone else's narrative. Here's something most people don't know. While everyone was focused on Hollywood drama, Johnny's art quietly sold out in hours online. His limited edition portraits, colorful, bold, unapologetically him, were snapped up by collectors around the world. That's no accident. That's vision. And it proves something that should give all of us hope. When you stop trying to fit into someone else's mold, you make space for your truest work to shine. There's a lesson in all this. If you're ever feeling like it's too late to start over, too late to follow that dream, too late to take back your story, think of this moment. Think of Johnny at 62 directing, creating, and turning the page on a whole new era. Think about the rejection he endured, the millions of people who assumed he was finished, and then look at what he's doing now, not in spite of it, but because of it. And here's something else. Don't go it alone. Johnny had musicians, artists, and friends who believed in him, even when the public didn't. One of the biggest myths out there is that comebacks are solo journeys. They're not. They're built on quiet support systems, encouraging texts, a partner who says, "Keep going," fans who never stop believing. When Johnny toured with Jeff Beck, it wasn't just about music, it was therapy, community. Every night on stage, he proved to himself and to the world that he still belonged. That his talent wasn't tied to a studio deal or a box office report. It was in him, always had been, and that's what makes this comeback so powerful. It's not flashy, it's not loud, it's not about revenge or proving anyone wrong. It's about peace, purpose, and above all, authenticity. So what about you? What's something you've been putting off because you think it's too late? Let me know in the comments. I read everyone, and you never know who your story could help inspire. And if this comeback fired you up, check out our video on how Robert Downey Jr. rebuilt his career from rock bottom. It's filled with twists and lessons you won't want to miss. His journey and Johnny share something powerful: the resilience to reinvent when the world least expects it. If you like this one, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Not because we told you to, but because here we celebrate real stories, second chances, and the people who refuse to quit. Every like, every comment, every share helps more people find these stories and maybe even find a little hope of their own. And hey, remember that jaw-dropping fact we teased at the beginning? Here it is. Johnny's new film isn't just in development. It's rumored to premiere at a major European festival next year. That's right, from courtroom drama to red carpet premieres. Again, talk about full circle. And the best part? He's doing it his way, quietly, artistically, authentically. At 62, Johnny Depp is not chasing relevance, he's creating legacy. Not many can say that, but he can. See you in the next video.